Today's sponsor is BT Miners. BT Miners has been a long-time sponsor of the channel and a proven reliable source for ASIC miners. If you're looking to purchase ASICs hardware from Bitcoin to Dogecoin miners, they are available for purchase on bt-miners.com. BT Miners is a trusted source by both ASICminervalue.com and CryptoMiner.com. Follow the affiliate link in the description and tell them SOT sent you to support the channel. We do have some bullish news. Bullish, my friends. Texas Work Group on Blockchain Matters report. Now, to be clear, this is proposed. This isn't passed or anything like that. It is a House Bill 1576. Or wait, hold on. This was passed. There we go. Passed by the 87th Texas legislature is what it says now. I don't know if we'll have to check the status on this. When I had originally seen it, I wasn't aware of that, but this examines the current blockchain industry, reviews the state's current workforce and required growth. I don't think any of these policies are applied yet. Don't quote me on that. I do want to point out we did do a short on this, and I will be doing some more research on this later, but there are some very, very, very bullish moves coming from the state of Texas here. They're actually completely counteractive to Biden's digital currency policy, which is going to be interesting. You know, I have talked about this in the past on the Rumble channel, which I highly recommend. After the show, we'll talk about this more in more depth, but there does appear to be, related around crypto, a pretty strong stance of like Texas, right, versus like New York, or really at this point the federal government. And by nature, there is partisanship starting to flow through that, right, where you have this kind of support for cryptocurrency, this strong support for cryptocurrency coming from Republicans, especially when it pertains to mining and so on, and kind of a huge pushback, mostly probably due to specifically the environmental push is what I would assume. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions, of course, in the comment section, as well as the live chat, and we can talk in more depth and more freely over on Rumble later. But I am starting to draw these correlations that do seem to be somewhat related, right? And we need to pay attention to that as we move forward. And yes, the channel is, because we do talk about these topics, being suppressed on YouTube. When I looked at essentially the current traffic on YouTube, it is all external, or a majority of it is external. It has never been a majority external in the past. So I would appreciate any sharing you can do for this if you find it helpful. Let's get back into this though. There are, like I said, some very bullish moves going on here. Commercial contracts. The legislature should consider and enact proposed 2022 amendments to the Uniform Commercial Code dealing with technology changes, including new Article 12 and amendments to Article 9. These enactments will give full legal recognition to digital assets as a type of personal property, and will protect such traditional property rights as the right to own free and clear of conflicting property claims, the right to assign as collateral for obligations, and the right to sell. I mean, come on, if that ain't bullish for Texas, man. It is amazing, dude. Now, to avoid creating ambiguity in the emerging blockchain marketplace in Texas, the legislature should not supplement to or attempt to clarify Texas's earlier enactment of the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act, which gives full legal recognition to electronic records, electronic signatures, and the use of automation to complete transactions electronically. Digital identity. Texas should incentivize technology companies whose revenue model does not depend on the monetization of personal data, or whose revenue model actively precludes such data monetization, to headquarter in Texas. The legislature should further study the best incentivization model to achieve this purpose. The work group encourages the legislature to adopt a resolution affirming the importance of exploring a framework for self-sovereign identity, SSI, that would allow individuals to custody data about themselves and decide when, how, and with whom the data is shared. Now, obviously, this is extremely important, and this is something that we were working on previously with a company called Tiki. I'm going to be revisiting with them, but the individual's right to own their data, I think, is paramount and has been something that's been ignored in government policy for quite some time. So I really like seeing this, and the implications as it surrounds blockchain could be pretty significant with, of course, things like smart contracts and so on. And so I think that it makes sense that that would be a part of this in particular, right? This bill in particular. The work group encourages the legislature to adopt a resolution affirming the right of Texas citizens to possess cryptocurrency on their own account and to not be prohibited from the use of what is commonly, if inaptly, referred to as self-hosted wallets. Yes! 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 Thank you! Yes. Yes. So good. They obviously had some pretty hefty, like, hardcore fundamental Bitcoin maxis advising on this, right? But this is important because when we talk about the way that they will move forward with essentially regulating cryptocurrency here, and what we've seen, with different companies pulling out of, like Japan with like Coinbase and so on like that, is that a lot of the countries and nation states that are moving into a central bank digital currency will possibly let you still continue to trade, but they will start removing the possibility of you hosting it yourself. And the reason for that is because they want to track it in and out at all times, right? And if you allow for self-hosting, you allow for basically the ability for somebody to trade in what is the equivalent of cash, right? And if you trade in the equivalent of cash, it is harder to track, and therefore it's harder to tax, among other things. And more than likely, of course, what the argument would be to violate your rights to basically transact without the interference of a government or a bank will be out of the concern of safety. The problem is that you end up, of course, introducing a lot of regulation that does not necessarily respect the rights of the individual or their financial autonomy. And so when we get into what states on an individual level can do, this is along the right lines, right? This isn't, to me, dissimilar from the ability for a state to choose whether or not marijuana is legal, right? This is on the same kind of docket as that would be. And states' rights are very important and should not be violated, in my humble opinion. And it allows for people to move freely between the states into areas where they may be more aligned politically, right? Or with the principles that they decide to live by. So if you are, more along the lines of a Bitcoin maxi or a fundamental cryptocurrency participant that prefers, the ideals of like not your keys, not your crypto, and being able to transact peer-to-peer without the interference of a government or a bank, then maybe Texas is where you want to be. This is pretty awesome. Also, DJ Minds Raid, thank you, good sir. Make sure you guys go subscribe to DJ Minds over on YouTube. A bad aim mofo. Everybody that is coming in, make sure you pay attention to, of course, what we're talking about today, which is the Texas Work Group on Blockchain Matters report. And this report obviously is giving suggestions to changes to Texas law. The one that we were just talking about is the right for a citizen of Texas to own on their own account right here. Own and possess cryptocurrency on their own account. It shall not be prohibited from use. And the self-hosted wallets shall not be prohibited from use, right? So this is pretty awesome, dude. And thank you so much once again from DJ Minds. I'm sure he's excited about this as well. So DAOs, this one's interesting. So DAOs are getting a part in this. They're getting talked about, and I think this is probably the first time that we've seen anybody in government talk about decentralized autonomous organizations, at least in an official outlet like this. So this is interesting. The legislature should clarify business enterprise law to ensure decentralized autonomous organizations enjoy a full range of business entity formation options and are not limited to a single option. In other words, Texas should not create, for example, a specialized version of the LLC, meaning DAOs are going to be, basically, you will be able to file as whatever form of current options there are for your DAO. So you want to have a limited, an S corp under a limited liability corporate or company like an LLC, go for it. The legislature should consider amending the business organizations code to clarify that a company agreement of a limited liability company is not unenforceable merely because part or all of the agreement is written in computer code. That's really interesting as well. So it will say that the company agreement, so to clarify that a company agreement of limited liability company is not unenforceable merely because. So you'll be able to enforce it even though it's only written in computer code. The legislature should consider amending business organization code to clarify that another suitable electronic communication system may include an electronic data system alone or in combination with the other technologies listed in that section for the purposes of holding meetings and voting. So now you can essentially go to the point of being able to hold board meetings and votes and all of that sort of stuff completely purely within a DAO, and it will be recognized under Texas law, or at least that's how I understand it, which is pretty bullish, I think, for DAOs in general in Texas. This is pretty cool. Now, education. Texas should create a more robust privacy protections for student data, clear disclosures of the practices of data collectors and processors, and a reasonable range of opt-out rights, including prioritizing student and parent ownership of data. In order to ensure maximum privacy of student data and ensure the prioritization of student and parent ownership of said data, Texas should encourage education technology providers to use open technology standards for student records. It's just, I feel like everything in here is like a libertarian's dream come true. It's like, the job of the government is being done, which is to basically to protect the rights of the individual, the job of the government to, obviously protect the rights, of the individual and uphold those rights. And that's it. While at the same time, not infringing on their rights to hold or transact with cryptocurrency. It gets even better too. Texas should create a severance tax abatement for natural gas that was once flared but is now being consumed on site. Texas should incentivize controllable loads like Bitcoin mining by lessening the tax burden on the purchase of electricity when it is used to power a Bitcoin mine or other large flexible load that participates in ancillary services with ERCOT, essentially. So we recommend this tax incentive be given under the condition that a large flexible load, like a Bitcoin miner, participates in a new load category within ERCOT, called the large flexible load category, or they voluntarily agree to curtail their power usage anytime physical responsiveness capacity, PRC, dips to 3,000 megawatts PRC. Now, obviously, like a farm like mine's not going to be big enough to capitalize on something like that. But I still think that giving the proper tax incentives to encourage the type of behavior that you want is a pretty smart move. All right. So, Here's fun stuff. Finance. Texas should institute 2-year retail sales tax holiday for direct cryptocurrency point of sale payments for products and services subject to reasonable value cap. This is actually quite massive for adoption within Texas, because what this means is potentially, right? You have businesses that will adopt it to avoid sales tax for the next 2 years. I mean, obviously, there will be some sort of reasonable value cap, but let's say you're a small coffee shop and you just want to be able to start a new payment system and adopt something like cryptocurrency for payment. There's that. Another thing that's really interesting when we start talking about, the FPGA sales that I'm talking about coming up with here shortly, is there is potential for us to be able to spin up a cryptocurrency payment system for those FPGAs and not have to collect tax to the same extent, which would give us a chance to actually get the systems in place and understand them without having to worry about another burden on top of it. So this is really cool for adoption, I think. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this pans out. The legislature should consider codifying established cryptocurrencies with a large market cap such as Bitcoin as an unauthorized investment for the state of Texas. Pretty cool. And then Texas should take steps necessary to make clear to the public that under existing law, operating a Lightning Network node does not make an entity or individual a money service business in Texas. This should be accomplished either by an appropriate Texas regulator issuing a public statement or by enacting legislation. Yes, thank you. This was a big one that obviously was going to be a problem for some time, where they were wanting to basically tell everybody that, just for running a node, you were a money service business, which is ridiculous. You're running you're running the network or a peer-to-peer network. You're not actually taking any profit off of it. That's a huge one as well. The legislature should consider appropriate consumer protection related to different cryptocurrency lending models. The legislature should coordinate with the Texas congressional delegation to ensure that regulation at the federal level similarly differentiates between the risk profiles of the different lending models currently offered. Texas should create a statutory definition of a fully US dollar-backed audited stablecoin that has the status of money for all purposes, including but not limited to for permissible investments under the Texas Money Services Act. Now, this one could go the wrong direction. It's really interesting, though, because it's basically a stable coin. They're not saying like a central bank digital currency for the state of Texas. They're saying a state of Texas backed stable coin, which could be, pretty amazing, really, at the end of the day. I'm kind of very interested in seeing what that is. It does say the work group calls attention to potential dangers of the creation of a retail central bank digital currency. So they're like, do a stable coin that's audited and backed, but don't do a central bank digital currency. A CBDC that involves a direct relationship between the Federal Reserve and consumers in the United States, and encourages the legislature to coordinate with the Texas congressional delegation to oppose such attempts. Dude. Yes. We have a state that's against central bank digital currencies. I'm glad I live here. I gotta be honest. Government. The legislature should direct state agencies with subject matter expertise to develop best practices or guidance related to finances and leveraging blockchain technologies infrastructure. Best practices could include defining blockchain benefits, use cases, contractual language development of a blockchain innovation, and or center of excellence and education or curriculum development. The legislature should direct the Department of Information Resources to develop a decision model to assist agencies in deciding if blockchain technology is appropriate for infrastructure consideration. Using a decision model to assist the use case selection process will save time and focus efforts on use cases that provide the greatest value to the organization. And the legislature should consider establishing an innovation center within DIR or an independent organization as a private-public partnership. Official record-keeping systems. Texas should encourage counties to consider piloting the integration of blockchain technology in the existing land registry system and solicit an RFX, request for proposal, or a request for offer, RFO, etc., on the use of blockchain technology to support storage of real property records. We're talking about a state utilizing basically smart contracts to store property records. Amazing. To the extent that blockchain technology may lower costs and create efficiencies in a real estate transactions and title research, Texas should encourage private actors such as title insurers to adopt new technologies. Texas should consider whether to use a blockchain-based data management system for UCC financing statements, and in connection with adopting such a system, should consider the elimination of paper filings. So the Texas Workgroup on Blockchain Matters charges. The 87th Texas Legislature passed House Bill 1576, creating a work group on blockchain matters concerning Texas. The bill, authored by the state representative Tan Parker, directed the work group to develop a master plan for the expansion of blockchain industry in this state and recommend policies and state investments in connection with the blockchain technology, and required a report including the master plan and any findings or recommendations be submitted to the legislature. This report is submitted in compliance with the requirements of HB 1576. So the bill was to go through and have a report. This is the report and the suggestions. That means that not any of these suggestions are written in law right now. Currently, that is my understanding. It would go through a bunch of other processes before it would go there. But it does look like, in my humble opinion, that all of these suggestions are on point. Surprisingly, directly on point. I don't think I found anything I disagree with. And usually, you guys know I can find something to disagree with. I do not see it here. It's right on par with what I would say lines up fundamentally with the principles of cryptocurrency as put forth, in the Bitcoin white paper and so on. I mean, even to the point to where I believe in here, they do talk about Satoshi Nakamoto. They talk about the white paper, what it means, and the importance of cryptographic hashes. So they address all of that, right? And it's simply insane. In the words of WCCF Tech, it's simply insane. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.